My boss humiliated me in front of the entire office. He called me useless, lazy, and then fired me on the spot, just to make himself look powerful. Everyone laughed as I walked out with my things. But what they didn't know was that I was just getting started. 3 years later, I walked back into the same building, not as an employee, but as the man who now owned the company. I gave 10 years of my life to that company. 10 years of long nights, missed family dinners, and extra work that nobody else wanted to do. I believed loyalty mattered. I believed that if you worked hard, you'd be rewarded. But I was wrong. One Friday afternoon, the boss called an all-hands meeting. I thought it was for an announcement, maybe a promotion, or at least recognition for the years I had given. Instead, he called me out by name, stood me in front of 200 employees, and told everyone that I was lazy, that I was holding the company back, and that I was fired. Just like that. The room went silent. Then a few nervous laughs. My face burned as I packed my things while everyone watched. I can still hear his words echoing. This company has no place for failures. Walking out of that building, I felt destroyed. My career, my pride, my reputation. Everything seemed gone in a single afternoon. Friends stopped answering my calls. Co-workers avoided me like I carried a disease. And the man I once respected had turned me into a public joke. But humiliation does something powerful to you. At first, I stayed in bed for days questioning myself. Was I really useless? Was I really a failure? But then anger kicked in. Anger that burned hotter than shame. I decided that if he thought I was worthless, I'd prove him wrong in a way he'd never forget. With the little savings I had, I rented a tiny office no bigger than a storage room. I had no staff, no clients, just an old laptop and the determination to rise again. The first months were brutal. I made hundreds of calls every day, begging for contracts, most of them ending with rejection. Some nights, I didn't even have enough money for dinner. But slowly things began to change. A small client gave me a chance. Then another. I treated them with respect, the opposite of what I had experienced with my old boss. Word spread. My name started circulating, and more clients trusted me. It wasn't fast and it wasn't easy, but piece by piece, my tiny office began to look less like a graveyard for dreams, and more like the start of something powerful. And while I was quietly building from scratch, my old boss was busy destroying the empire he once bragged about. His arrogance, his greed, his need to crush people. Those very things started eating away at his company from the inside. What he didn't know was that the man he humiliated was coming back. And next time, I wouldn't just be an employee. Months turned into years. My tiny office grew into a team, then into a company. We weren't flashy, we weren't the biggest, but we were reliable, and people noticed. One of the first big breaks came when a major client left my old boss's company and signed with us. Then another. And another. Every time I signed a new contract, I imagined the look on my old boss's face when he realized who had taken his clients. For me, it wasn't just business, it was justice. Meanwhile, his empire was crumbling. He had fired so many talented people that only yes men were left around him. Projects failed, deadlines were missed, and slowly his reputation collapsed. The man who once called me useless was now desperate to keep his company alive. Then came the moment I'll never forget. His company, drowning in debt, went up for sale. And guess who had the money to buy it? I walked back into the same building I had left years ago with my head down. Only this time, my head was high, my suit sharp, and the contract for ownership in my hand. Employees who once laughed at me now whispered in shock. And my old boss, his face turned pale when he saw me. He tried to smile, to act polite, but I could see the fear in his eyes. For years he had treated people like stepping stones, but now the tables had turned. He had no choice but to sit across from me, knowing I held his future in my hands. When the papers were signed, it was official. I was the new owner. The man who once humiliated me was now out of power, his empire in my hands. I didn't shout, I didn't insult, I didn't need to. My silence spoke louder than any words. He walked out of that office the same way I once did, but this time, it was his turn to feel the humiliation. And as I stood there looking at the company I now owned, one truth became crystal clear. Success isn't just the best revenge, it's the only revenge worth having.